Yo, what's up? What's up? What's up, everybody? This is your brother Shakim. I'm in Hotep. I can't. Man, hey, listen. We gotta talk about something. I wanted to make sure I went on live to talk about something, right? So a lot of you know that I've been very critical of the Biden administration. Very critical because I believe that a lot of the policies that the Biden administration has been backing has been horrible. I think right now, a lot of the campaign promises that he made, especially last year during the Black Lives Matter protests and rallies, I think Biden has what he did is he manipulated a lot of black voters. I think that he made sure that he said things that wasn't going to actually come to fruition. And it's been one of the playbooks of the Democratic Party for a long time to make a lot of these, warm and kind gestures, but not live up to it. So I think what Biden and Harris did is they took the old playbook out of the previous Democratic strategies and used it. And listen, whenever people say Biden has been in office for 5 or 6 days, that's a complete lie. Biden has been in office over 45 years. He's been a vice president for 8 years. He has done nothing but deceive people. His greatest accomplishment has been locking up or bragging about locking people up. So how is it that we can just embrace a guy like him who has a past of lying? Well, let me talk to you like this. A lot of progressives have been talking about raising the minimum wage, and there's a debate about a $15 an hour minimum wage. Now, if you go talk to local business owners, a lot of them will tell you that this is one of the worst progressive policies that could happen. For one, who thinks about raising minimum wage during the middle of an epidemic, right? Right now, we're in the middle of a pandemic. A lot of people are talking about COVID, and we already see the economy being shut down. The Democrats have been the loudest when they started talking about shutting down the economy. Shutting down the economy has led to people being laid off of jobs, led to jobs being moved overseas. The economy has crumbled. And while President Trump was saying, listen, we need to reopen up, they went back to the old scare tactics and talked about how we were going to have all these people die and we're going to end up in a state of emergency if the economy opens back up. Fake news CNN did all they could to make sure that they could scare people into making sure that the economy didn't open back up. That caused a lot of food shortages. That caused a lot of job loss. People were talking about, people were worrying about how they can build their families back up after the government did everything they could to shut down businesses. And then now you're going to turn around and you're going to ask these same businesses that you just shut down to pay a person $15 an hour. And see, this is the type of progressive mindset that we have out of people like Bernie Sanders and Andrew Yang and Pelosi and these type of people, right? Because they really aren't concerned about anybody but themselves. And they're only concerned about what they can do to secure votes. So what they've done is psychologically played on the minds of the people and said, listen here, we want to pay you $15 an hour. Keep in mind, it takes them 9 months to pass a bill just to decide that they're going to give you $600 in stimulus release and stimulus money. But then all of a sudden they want to turn around and talk about we're going to increase the minimum wage by $15. In some areas, it's probably not bad. But think about how that's all gonna play on unemployment, right? Now, if you walk into Walmart right now, you're gonna walk into Walmart, you go walk into Target, you go walk into McDonald's, you go walk into Taco Bell, you see that humans are being replaced with machines. So government is not smarter than business, right? Businessmen and businesswomen, business people are always smarter than government. The reason why they started putting these machines out in the first place is because they foresaw a situation where big government is going to say, you know what, we're going to increase the wages, not the market, but we're going to artificially increase the wages so that you're going to have to pay more money. So what they do, they said, fine, we'll go get a machine. We have to hire less cashiers. We got to hire less people in the front. We got to hire less clerks. We just put a machine and just have somebody watch at the checkout, and you just go in, you scan your items, put them in a bag, you go. Right? So business is always going to outsmart the government. Right? Government is only there right now, in my opinion. You might share a different thing. Government is only there right now to fatten their pockets and to see how much tax money they can collect, because a lot of these bills are filled with pork projects and pet projects that they get money for from lobbyists to promote. So think about this. Business turns around and says, you know what? Every business does forecasting and things of that nature. They kind of keep abreast of what's going on, so they're not totally oblivious. So what do? They say, hey, you know what? We got progressives like Bernie Sanders, we got Pelosi, we got all of these people, and they're going to start talking about artificially increasing workers' wages. So what are we going to do? We're going to put a machine on the checkout line. So in the event that our operation costs or our staffing costs increase, we can still be able to keep our margins the same, our profit margins the same, because we need less employees. So what does that do to the unemployment rate? Right? So let's just think about that, right? Think about that for a second. You tell a business that they have to increase their payroll, right? Payroll is going to increase because you got to pay more money. So what is the first thing a business does? They think about, well, how can we cut payroll? Because you're cutting into their margins. So now business has to outsmart government, right? Another thing that they have to do, especially in industries where you don't really have a lot of huge profit margins. So just take small businesses, right? Small businesses, they're going to have to actually drive up the price and pass it off to the customers. This is basic economics 101. But for some reason, the far left, radical, white, right-wing socialists, they don't understand basics. They don't understand basic economics. They don't. Because they're just so concerned about socialism, and they're in a fairy tale world. They're not thinking about the trade-offs that are associated with it. They just think, yeah, let's just tax the rich and then just give all the money to the poor. But see, that's what they do to kind of like hook, line, and sinker you in. They just make those idiotic statements. Look at Bernie Sanders. Look at Elizabeth Warren. Look at these progressives. They'll say, you know what? We're going to put a super luxury tax on the rich, and we're going to take care of the poor. People always talk about, well, Republicans want to do trickle-down economics. Trickle-down economics has not worked. Tell me this. When have you seen the Democratic machine tax the rich and the money flows directly to the poor? When does that type of economic thing work? How has that worked so far? How has taxing all these rich people worked out for giving money to the poor people? If their intentions were correct, that might work. But they don't do that. Whenever they tax the super rich, somehow it ends up in a lobbyist pocket somewhere where they want to give money for gender studies in Afghanistan, or they want to give $4 billion to study the causes of migration in foreign countries and things like that. So the money never really does even get to the people. It only goes to further the Democratic agenda. That's all it does. And they play crazy mind games with people, right? So you're driving the cost of prices up by artificially inflating minimum wage. You have all type of numbers that show that there's going to be a trade-off somewhere. So all you're doing is creating and causing inflation. So think of this. Whenever the Democrats create a welfare state where they're constantly taxing, and spending, and then they're trying to artificially inflate money by giving it out because it causes inflation. So every time they're just giving out this money, it's causing inflation. What ends up happening is the prices of goods automatically go up because the small businesses have to pass this cost off to somebody. And it's going to be you, the consumer. But by you not understanding that, you're not understanding the nature of business. You're just saying, oh, they could do it. Oh yeah, you know what? They can do it. You're not thinking logically. You're not. You're not even logically. You're not thinking logically. So you have something that was called, and I think I was reading the other day, the classical economic theory. So with the classical economic theory, it just also says that hey, when wages go up, prices go up. Right? That's the classical economic theory. As wages go up, prices go up. You can just kind of like backtrack in your mind when you was a kid. A lot of us, when we were children, we used to buy a candy bar out of the store 25 cents, 50 cents. So what the Democrats are doing, they're actually putting the poor people in a situation to where you're taking away generational wealth, right? Because just say I have $8,000 in the bank for my child. She's 15 years old. So whenever they start increasing minimum wage, prices increase, everything increases. That $8, $9, $10,000 that my child had when she was 15, by the time she's 22, it's less money because the value of money has gone down because inflation has gone up. So what was once $8,000 when she was 14 might be equivalent to only $3,000 now that she's 21 because of a lot of the liberal policies and the liberal Democrats that are trying to pump money into the economy, and the money is worthless. And what ends up happening is these businesses just drive up costs. The cost of production of goods goes up, so the business increases prices. So now generational wealth that they always talk about, generational wealth, it's decreasing. That's a basic economics. Basic economics. So what I'm saying here, when you start looking at the causes of inflation, you got to look at stuff. Look at the housing market. That's going to be negatively impacted too, because when you have inflation of prices, everything goes up. So you increase the minimum wage, you increase the cost of goods and services, inflation goes up across the board. So now housing becomes more expensive, right? That's just simple economics. Simple what they call cost push inflation. When prices increase due to increases in production costs. That's all that is. That's basic cost push inflation. Go look it up. But we're steadily voting for people just like universal basic income. Everybody, oh man, the far left radical extremists, they talk about universal basic income. Andrew Yang and Bernie Sanders. We want each American to get $2,000 a month. That is totally absurd, right? See, we have a system already of universal basic income, and that is welfare, right? See, these type of things are only supposed to be temporary, right? Temporary because everybody falls on hard times, right? Everybody. The average American falls on hard times. So when you fall on hard times, there should be temporary relief. That's why we do a lot of community service work, because one of the things that I believe in is being able to match resources with individuals. Because there's a lot of stuff that a lot of y'all don't need. You store, you have in your closet. Your child went from a 2T to a 5T, and you got the 2T jackets in your closet. Give it out. Let's do a giveaway. Clean out your closet. See, that doesn't cause inflation. Whenever you can match resources with things that people don't want or they have and they really don't need, if you pass that off to somebody, that's a clean way to help people in a situation to where you don't have to have inflation. There's no inflation involved with what I do in the community. There's no inflation. You have a lot of produce left over from farmers and the agriculture industry that's going to get bad. So the surplus that you have, you get it and you tell the people, listen, we got food for you, because it's going to go bad anyway. These type of things don't lead to inflation. They don't lead to more taxes, but they still are able to help people in a particular time of need whenever they only need something to get them through a situation that is only going to last a short period of time, right? So now let's think about that. That's a very economical way and a smart way in order for us to be able to, I don't understand how intelligent, receptive people buy into a 5-minute speech with zero success. Get on. Let's get on. Let's get on, bro. I'll send you a link right now. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's get on. We can talk about all of this. With all due respect, I can get you on. Let's do it. We can set up a date. We can set up a date and have a debate. Because as a matter of fact, I have all the information, all the historical information and historical documentation that actually shows how increases in wages are going to lead to increased inflation, and also it leads to unemployment. I got the facts. I got it. I'm ready. Let's go. Let's go. We'll set it up. I'll inbox you afterwards, Papa Smurf. I'll inbox you afterwards. We could have a wonderful discussion about this, because one of the things that I always do, right? And like I was talking about cost push inflation, these are concepts that are age-old concepts that have been studied, right? So when you pick up a book and you start reading about economic theory and how things work, you can't ignore it. And see, that's one of the things that the Democratic Party does. They will, and politicians in general, what they'll do is they'll say something for so long that they'll just begin to have you believe it, but then they don't put together any sort of empirical data to back up what they have. I have empirical data to show you that a universal basic income will not work. I have the data to prove that. I have it. I don't have an opinion. I have an actual fact. Smurf, that's my boy. That's my boy. That's my homeboy, Papa Smurf. But I got the information. You know what I'm saying? I got the information. And then the thing is, see, I'm not getting on him, right? But just this is what I want to show you, right? These are conversations that actually matter. These are, because if you have somebody like a Pete Buttigieg, who says the first thing he talks about is, I want to, when I get in office, I'm going to put together a gas tax. What is a gas tax going to do? That is going to raise the cost of gas, right? That's step one. If you tax gas or put a gas tax, that means the cost of gas is going to go up. What happens when the cost of gas goes up? People are going to travel less. What is going to happen with public transportation? Public transportation is going to go up more. See, that's why I say people don't think about trade-offs. They only think in terms of what the world should be. They don't think in terms of trade-off. So all of the intellectual understanding that someone should have goes out the window, because they're only thinking in line with what their party is saying. They're not thinking in terms of what is actually going to happen. So you can't get on here and tell me that the subjects that I'm talking about doesn't matter. Because when gas prices increase, you might be rich, but when gas prices increase, the average American suffers. If you even talk to a car salesman. When gas prices increase, his ability to sell an SUV decreases, because it costs more to fill up at the pump. These are conversations that matter. I love Papa Smurf. He's a good brother. But we're going to talk about this, because what I'm telling you right now, every small business owner is afraid, because if you artificially inflate wages without some sort of cap on inflation, it's going to cause what? Prices to go up. See, that's just a simple concept that I want to talk about, because we got to start understanding what drives inflation, and that's the whole thing. Anytime you have a welfare system or welfare state that is created by the government, they have to get funding for that. The funding comes through taxing people, increasing costs. This is economics 101. And I, for the life of me, I don't understand why we vote people in who the first thing we know that they want to do is increase taxes. That's it. That hurts us. So when you have things like a major welfare system like universal basic income, when you have something that like artificially inflating minimum wage. When you start doing all these type of things, especially during a recession, you already know what's going to happen. Come on, listen. I gotta. I'm gonna put this up real quick. I'm gonna put this up. Listen, this my homeboy now. Ain't no beef with us. This my homeboy. This my homeboy. With all due respect, I don't understand how intelligent, receptive people buy into a 5-minute speech with zero substance. So what he says, cost push inflation, is zero substance. What he's saying is understanding what the causes or what drives inflation is of zero substance, right? Because this is what we were talking about, right? When I said cost push inflation, I'm talking about the concept when prices actually increase due to wages increase our production costs, right? Or the cost of raw materials. So he's saying right now this has zero substance, right? Even though we're in an economic depression right now and people are struggling because jobs are being cut because of what? The economy is being suffocated because people are the government is suffocating the economy by limiting hours of operation for businesses, right? So this is zero substance to him. This doesn't exist, right? He says, I'm sick of all the noise. I'm sick of all the empty words and uninformed opinions. So my uninformed opinion is you can't tax or put taxes on people in the middle of an epidemic while you have businesses closed and expect the people to prosper, right? He's saying that I'm uninformed for saying that. He's saying I'm uninformed for saying that the government is not good economic policy for the government to increase taxes during a pandemic when they have created an economic black hole for businesses to operate in due to limiting the amount of hours of operation or limiting the capacity of a business. This is what he's saying. He's saying that doesn't matter. He's saying that that's uninformed. He said there's too much being said with too little meaning. So he said it really doesn't mean anything that businesses who already have a small profit margin are going to have to increase their payroll. He said that has little meaning. That doesn't mean anything, right? He said we're all talking, but no one is saying anything but hypothesis. How is that a hypothesis? That is empirical data that we collect over the years showing how the economy works. We're talking about what drives inflation. We're talking about the causes of inflation. And we're talking about how taxes, the increase in taxes, automatically leads to the devaluation of money. But he's saying that's a hypothesis, right? How about being real for once and start having conversations that actually matter? So it doesn't matter that we have restaurant owners right now who are suffering because they got to close the bar at 11 p.m. He said that doesn't matter, right? Conversations that actually matter. He says it doesn't matter that the government right now wants to tax and spend, right? Because yes, the government might be passing out these checks right now to people who some of us don't need it. But it really doesn't matter. He's saying that doesn't lack substance. That doesn't actually matter. But it does matter. It does matter because, like I said, people who have savings accounts or money in the bank, when inflation goes up, yes, you might still have that $8,000 in the bank, but as you have pumped more money into the economy, it devalues the money. It devalues the impact or the spending power of that money. That is why, like I said earlier, $8,000 today is not equivalent to what $8,000 was 15 years ago. Why is that? Inflation, right? But he's saying that conversation doesn't actually matter, right? That doesn't matter. So I'm inviting him on for a debate. Let's talk economics. That's That's what I want to talk about. Let's talk about economics. Let's talk about causes and effect. Let's talk about ways how we can genuinely get past a lot of this by making sure our lawmakers don't, I would say, spend frivolously. Like I said, you start looking at all these stimulus bills, $1 trillion, $2 trillion, trillions of dollars. Then when you start breaking down the bills and what is in the bills is nothing but pork. They want to give all this money to a closed museum, Smithsonian. They get $100 million. Why are you giving them $100 million? They said that place, I think it's the Smithsonian, one of the museums, one of the big museums. But that place has been closed ever since the pandemic. So if that place has been closed ever since the pandemic, why do they need $100 million? Right? So these are the things that we have to really start talking about, because when you have situations like we're in now, you got to be able to prepare for them. Anton, what do you say? He says a gradual increase in small increments can be absorbed. Oh, Kennedy Museum. Yeah, it was one of them. Sorry about that. Okay, a gradual increase in small increments can still be absorbed and planned for. It can, right? And I definitely understand that, because a gradual increase definitely can be prepared for, right? And you can plan for it. So this is the thing. Even in those situations, it's still going to cause inflation. You can't get around it. The more money that is pumped into the economy artificially, right? We're talking about artificially. Artificially means not through an organic process of I would say a demand. So you have the demand pull inflation, right? Because I talked about the cost pull inflation. Now with demand pull inflation, we're just talking about a basic consumer demand for a product, right? Because that causes inflation too. So when you start talking about the demand or the cost of goods because of demand, okay, that's more of an organic process, right? That's been, so this is the thing. The brother said inflation has been occurring for years and years and years and wages haven't moved. That is one of the most horrible myths that we can ever buy into. Wages have moved exponentially. Wages have moved outside of the minimum wage movement. That is why a lot of people say you don't need a federally mandated minimum wage, because as competition occurs, wages have increased simultaneously. The market is going to dictate naturally minimum wage. Now, keep in mind, minimum wage is actually zero. Wages have moved up. Wages have moved up. Inflation is going to be natural, right? But like I said, inflation is going to be natural because you have demand pull inflation, right? Because when people demand a good or service, the more and more people demand it, is going to drive the cost up. So you do have good inflation can be good in certain industries, right? And in certain things. So, okay. The brother said, would you agree that once we start having meaningful conversations, we will realize every conversation is just an opportunity to learn and grow? That's why this is one of the most meaningful conversations that we could have, right? When you start talking about economic policy and you start talking about how lawmakers are introducing potential legislation that will affect our pocket in the middle of a pandemic, I think that is one of the most pressing conversations that we could have right now. So whoever said wages haven't increased, wages have increased a lot. Even in the industry that I'm in, we were forced, in the industry I'm in, and in the business I'm in, and in the company I'm in, we were forced to increase our wages due to competition coming in. So we were forced to not pay somebody. When I first started off there, they were paying people $9.50 an hour to start off. They had to move up to like $13, $14 to actually get people to come in, because competition began to grow in the area, and they had to say, listen, we got to increase our wages, right? They had to. Wages have increased over the time. So that's why the argument against the minimum wage is put forth a lot of times, because people are saying, and economists and people who study the economy say, wages will increase when you let people compete. When the government steps back and doesn't always want to micromanage businesses through taxation and all these regulations. And I mean, regulation is good to a small degree, but the more and more regulation that you get, you're preventing people from getting into a particular industry to compete, because there's so many hurdles that you have to jump over. You got to get licensing for that. You got to get licensing for that. You got to get licensing for that, right? All of these licensings, all that's doing is creating fees that the government can collect in tax and use on their pet projects for their buddies. That's all it is. A lot of these licensing fees are totally unnecessary. Totally unnecessary. There's certain things you definitely need to get a license for. I mean, if you want to be a doctor, you need to be certified. You need to go through a test, right? There's licenses that are definitely good, but there's certain things that totally, they're like, oh, well, you need insurance, gun insurance and all of that. What is that going to do? Gun insurance? What? Tell me, what is gun insurance going to do other than have somebody pay more money to the government? That's all it is. So the thing is, you got to be careful, right, depending on the issue, you got to be careful about how we promote and we push a lot of these things, right? A lot of these concepts, you got to be careful. We got to always have these talks, and we got to have them intelligently, and we got to have them often. But like I said, when I'm looking at a lot of the things that's going on now, if the Democrats stay in power doing what they're doing now and pushing and pushing and pushing, every time you turn around, we want to give $2,000. We want to give $2,000 a month and make it retroactive. They're saying these things to get people to vote for them, even though they know it's totally illogical, right? Totally illogical. They know that we can't backtrack and give people $2,000 for 6 months ago when 8 months ago when the pandemic was at its height, or whatever they're saying. What they're doing is they're playing a mind game on you, and they want you to bait and switch, and they're baiting and switching on you, and they want you to feel as though, hey, this person is who we want. These people want to give us $2,000 a month. That sounds good. I ain't turning down $2,000 a month. Not at all. I'm not turning down $2,000. Y'all can give it to me. But the thing is, when you look at the big picture, after we start getting that $2,000 a month, it's gonna cause inflation. So now when I walk in the store, I could get a 6-pack of a soda for a pop, whatever y'all call it, a soda, whatever. I can get a 6-pack of Mountain Dew for $3. Now all of a sudden it costs $8. Why? Because inflation, the cost of goods and services have increased, because business owners are going to pass off the cost to the consumer. That's basic economic common sense 101. What's the difference between giving it to the people or directly putting it into the economy? This is the thing, right? A lot of times from what I've been reading, and there's a study, I'm trying to think what it was. I don't know if Thomas Sowell was saying it, but I was watching a video of one of Sowell, I think it was Sowell, one of the economists. I was watching the video, and he was talking about how there were studies that showed that a lot of people who got that stimulus check went and directly put it in the bank. They didn't use it because their rent was due right away, or they didn't need it because there was some immediate or pressing concern. Most people put the money in the bank immediately and didn't spend it. That's not necessarily putting the money into the economy. In a sense, both of them are, so I kind of get what you're saying. But right now, if the government gave me $2,000, I put it in the bank. Most of you right now, if the government gave you $2,000, you wouldn't say, "Oh man, my light bill's due tomorrow. I need this, man. I'm scheduled for service interruption tomorrow." Or you know what, man, my rent is past due, for the last week. Most of you would go and deposit the money in the bank, right? That's the truth. Most of you would deposit the money. So you're not going to immediately take your stimulus money and go spend it at Walmart on a flat screen TV. You're not going to take that $2,000 and immediately, go and put it into the economy. It's going to go in the bank. And the bank is going to have access to that capital and think of ways how they can make money and lend that money while it's accruing interest with them and you're not using it. That's what it's doing. So when I was listening to, and I think it was Thomas Sowell, I'm trying to remember, but I watch a lot of YouTube videos with economists and I read a lot of stuff. But a lot of them were saying that this money is not directly having a direct impact on the economy because people are putting the money in the bank because a lot of the people who get in the stimulus money don't really need it. I don't need it. I want it, but I don't need it. I've been supposed to get $600. What? I don't. If it comes, it comes. If it don't, it don't. When I get it, what I'm going to do? Probably put in the community resource center. The last $600 I got, I didn't need it. I wanted it. When I got it, what I do? I paid off, cable bill, put in the bank, something. I don't know. Gave it to the food bank so we can get food. But I didn't need it. I've been working the whole time. I've never been laid off. Nothing. I don't need a stimulus check like half of y'all on here right now don't need a stimulus check. You want it, but you don't need it. And when you start giving things to people who don't need it, then what they're doing is they're not spending it, right? The only way you can stimulate the economy is when people start spending money. But if you're giving money to people who are saving money, you're not going to see that jump start in the economy. I was watching this the other day, listening to the same arguments being made. And he had the numbers to prove it. I just didn't write it down or nothing, but I can go back and pull it up. I can go put the video on and let you listen. But this is the thing. This is the thing. Hold on. All right. Let me see. I agree. I don't need it. But a single parent families need to work twice as hard as families with two working. Right. A single mother with two children earning the federal minimum wage, something. Listen, I'm gonna tell you like this: a single mother making $7.25 an hour, she's getting government assistance. Most women, single mothers who make $7.25 an hour are on EBT. They not only get EBT, they get an ABC voucher in case they need daycare, and they get a utility check. Let's just be honest about that. A single working mother right now, more than likely, because you can't never speak in absolutes, right? You can't speak in absolutes because absolutes cause trouble. But a majority, and I'm going to jump out there and say a majority. Like I said, I'm not speaking of a single mother making $7.25 an hour with kids, she is getting government assistance. You know that, and I know that. And if she got a baby daddy on child support, she gets ABC voucher, she gets free medical, she gets Medicaid, or she gets medical assistance, she gets free medical, she gets free housing, all of that. ABC voucher for the kids to go to daycare. They're getting that. And they living in Section 8. They're getting that. So if anything, hell, they the ones that don't need the stimulus check. Because you're already getting a universal basic income for making $7.25 an hour with kids doing minimum work. They don't need the they don't they really don't they really the ones that don't need the stimulus. I need a stimulus more than them, but that's the whole point. So really good conversation. I love this. I'm glad Smurf jumped on, and like I said, Smurf is not, trust me, Smurf is in no way, shape, or form an enemy. He came on going off blasting, but that's cool. That's my brother. That's what we do. That's what we do. And that really helps us to make each other smarter and to have more intellectual discussions so that we can continue to keep this going, because we got to focus on policy. And that's why I get on a lot of people in the GOP, because whenever we start talking about, just emotional racism, oh, they're racist, and oh, he's racist, and oh, they want to destroy this and this and that, and the Parkland shooting is a hoax and all of this. And listen, that's not going to win you an election. We got to start talking about policy and ways how we can think through things and hold conversations to hold politicians accountable for our actions. Oh, Smurf know that. We ain't no issue. But I would love to have you on so we could talk more about economic theory and how we feel that the direction of the government should go or shouldn't go. We can definitely have these discussions. I'm definitely conservative when it comes down to things like this, because I feel like we're wasting a lot of money, and even under Trump, we're wasting a lot of money. We had a lot of debt and things under the Trump administration, and a lot of conservatives weren't conservative under President Trump. Now we have a lot of pushback from people saying, oh, well, every American doesn't need $2,000. But when President Trump said it, you didn't have any beef. MAGA, man, Trump said $2,000. Now Trump is out of office. Nancy Pelosi says, you know what? Chuck Schumer, they come along and say, let's do $2,000. Now you want to be so fiscally conservative. It doesn't work like that. If you're conservative, you need to always think conservative, and that needs to be the first thing that's on your mind, and how we can reduce wasteful spending so that, do you even know one place that no, I sure don't, Jeremy. I don't know. I've asked that question before, and some people have said, yeah, well, my 18, 17-year-old daughter works somewhere and makes minimum wage. And my response is, oh, that's why, because they're fresh out of school, unskilled labor. Once they, find something that's entry level, right? That's entry level. Entry level is exactly what it is. It's unskilled labor. It's for people who are just entering in and just trying to get a skill, who probably don't have a skill, and they want to, increase, their Dial America's not. I ain't gonna let you play Dial America now. Dial America does not start at no $7.25 an hour. I ain't gonna let you play Dial. Now Dial America is, I don't. That's another call center. That's my competition. But I ain't gonna sit there and slander them boy like that now. Yeah. It sounds right in theory. As your wages go up, so do taxes. Goods you buy pretty much also go up. And statistically, you'll be oh my God, Pat. That is exactly what I said. It sounds good in theory. But when you start looking at the trade, like I said, people don't look at the trade-offs, the trade-off. So you increase the wages, cost of the cost of goods and services. That's everything I just explained. So hey, I thank y'all for coming on. I really do appreciate it. We will continue to have another conversation talking about fiscal policy, monetary policy, all of that, man. How do you measure inflation? I mean, a lot of things, man. And especially one of the things that I was reading and talking about is who actually benefits from all of this, right? Because somebody has the benefit. People don't push an agenda without seeing some sort of benefit, right? So somebody sees some benefit somewhere if they can charge more or something. Somebody benefits. Now, consumers are the one who see little benefit from inflation. But keep in mind, investors can always enjoy a boost if they hold assets in that particular market affected by inflation, right? Let me say that again. See, the consumer, they don't benefit. Consumer might not benefit from inflation at all. Like we don't benefit. But an investor can benefit if they boost it and if they hold assets in that particular market that's affected by the inflation. They benefit. For example, like energy companies, right? They might see a rise in their stock prices if energy prices are rising, right? So the investors are the one who benefits, and a lot of times these investors are the ones who lobby for these particular policies to be enacted because they know that they have some sort of financial gain waiting in the cut if they can benefit the most. We'll talk about that the next time. Thank y'all. Love y'all. I just coughed. This ain't no COVID-19. That was just a cough. I love y'all. Thank y'all for coming on. Please share. We'll be back to talk about some more things because I got some more things that I want to get off my chest too. And the next thing I talk about is a subject that is dear to me, especially being somebody who's protested, somebody who's rioted. And well, I ain't actually riot. I've been outside during a riot. But I feel like what has happened is since Joe Biden has got in office, all of the promises that he made to protesters, he's been silent on. He hasn't said, let's notice, all last year, okay, let's say this. I'm going to say this before I leave because I'm going to say this for another show. 11 million immigrants he wants to grant amnesty to. He wants to clean 11 million immigrants didn't hit the street knocking on doors, blood, sweat, and tear during the pandemic, burning down buildings, spray painting police cars and throwing cocktails in the damn federal building. No. The people who were doing that, they wanted so-called police reform. Some people say, no, don't use reform. That's a bad word. They don't want to use that. But they wanted stuff like police oversight, citizens review boards, and all of that. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, man, George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and arrest the officers and this and that. Now Joe Biden got in office. Shh, you saying nothing. It's a mind game, but we'll talk about it the next time. But I appreciate y'all 1,000% and listening to my rant and all of that other stuff. So thank y'all 1,000%. This is Brother Shakim. Peace. Peace, peace.